No, Bungie! No, bad Bungie. Don't do it. Take your hand off those Pinnacle Ops. If I have to tell you one more time, do not touch the Pinnacle Ops. Bad Bungie. This has been a remarkable week in Bungie news and Destiny-related news. From what came across as a very tone-deaf twid, all the way to the resignation or retirement or whatever you call it of Pete Carsons, who's going to wheel spin that Porsche into the sunset. It's been an absolutely wild week. The really frustrating thing, actually, when you look through that twid, sure, there's a lot of junk, a lot of stupid stuff, but there are also a lot of changes that actually seem pretty good, potentially. All Bungie had to do, man, was actually address the amount of time that it takes in the power climb, which they said they were going to do like 2 weeks ago, and then they just don't comment on it and say a bunch of stuff that seems to be the total opposite. Massive contradiction. No wonder players are just wound up at Bungie at this point. Anyway, we're going to discuss some of that stuff today. Bungie actually respond to some of the player feedback. We'll also talk about how many players are, relatively speaking, just a stone's throw away from being able to start earning tier 5 loot consistently. That's one of the positives for a lot of people, not everyone necessarily. We'll speak about additional content coming in Ash and Iron, some of the positives there, and how Bungie can easily fix some of the negative things. Plus we'll talk about broken weapons, other additions coming to the portal like 6-player activities a bit later on in the year, and a bunch of other stuff. If you guys enjoy it, a rating below very much helps us out. But getting into it, firstly, Pete Parsons has retired from Bungie, probably because he stayed around long enough that a bunch of his shares are vested and he can now get a big payout from Bungie or Sony on his way out the door. Of course, Justin Truman is taking over as CEO or studio head, and Justin Truman's worked on Destiny for a long time. Yes, he is the over-delivery guy. Some of that has actually been taken out of context ever so slightly, but I can't really blame players for that, given the frustrations around the game at the moment. Also, Blake Battle is now the GM of Destiny. That refers to General Manager. I don't know a lot about Blake, but yeah, more restructuring on the Destiny team as well as in general at Bungie. It's going to continue to be an interesting year. Sony haven't even thrown their hand back in the mix yet, and that seems inevitable. Onto the actual Destiny stuff though, we had the TWID this week announcing a bunch of changes for portal activities and rewards. We've covered all that already, so we won't go over all of it, but a lot of frustration because a couple of weeks ago, Bungie had said that power progression is clearly slower than they want it to be, and they plan to generally increase the speed of progression. Yet, the TWID speaks about nerfing solo ops because it's too fast, nerfing additional rewards from certain pinnacle activities because they're too rewarding, when the reality is most of those additional rewards are junk that gets trashed for cause. Yeah, it was a very out of touch TWID, unfortunately. With regards to the power climb though, Giggs and Skull estimate that with the changes Bungie announced, they potentially just extended the final 50 levels by an additional 50 plus hours versus what we have right now. That's if you want to go all the way up to 550. And following a lot of feedback, however, DMG did say, "We appreciate it. Reading through responses across various places since the article was posted, the team is collecting a ton of feedback too, and we'll discuss it internally, but there's a lot to chew through." I'm glad they've responded and acknowledged that they are looking at the feedback. However, it won't really relax players much because they've said they're looking at feedback for weeks and weeks now, and there's the whole "we're listening" meme, which becomes more of a meme over time because Bungie have a habit of acknowledging feedback and then actively ignoring it, which is precisely what happened between the comments about the power climb 2 weeks ago and the TWID that we get today. I do get tired of constantly feeling like I need to criticize Bungie, but I'm not really left with much of a choice because it's like the TWID this week. They had so many elements, which actually in isolation are really potentially quite good. The same way that Edge of Fate systems have lots of things which in isolation can be very good, right? Like tier 5 loot. It's one of the biggest wins in terms of actually improving rewards in the game for a long time. But Bungie spoil it with ridiculous amounts of time gating, progression, lockouts, whatever it is. Which, by the way, is not me saying we want everything for free. I just don't think the vast majority of players feel like they want to play the game 12 hours a day in order to actually do this stuff. Bungie need to take what they've got that actually has a bit of momentum and carry it forward instead of constantly being in a situation where, well, it feels like they're saying, "We're right and you're wrong." It's like having a house on fire and the owner saying, "Yeah, that's going to be fine, just ignore it. No, we think we should put that fire out." I'm not feeling it, dude. Like, what are you talking about? Yeah, it's really frustrating. Let's be a bit more positive for a moment. With Ash and Iron, if you're a player that is currently 400 plus power, the good thing is, when you reach 500 power, which can be done without Prime Engrams, We will start to be rewarded with regular drops of the highest tier of weapons and armor, tier 5, so if that's what this chase has really been about, we're actually more or less just a stone's throw away from being able to do that, which is absolutely one of the positives coming down the road here. On top of that, we're going to get this new territory and Plague Lands content that Bungie have referred to, as well as the portal expanding with new activities. So as long as Bungie don't heavily nerf everything else, the game certainly is going to feel a bit more varied and interesting once Ashen Iron actually drops. Not to mention, on top of the reclaim activity, we'll get a new exotic mission, new gear in portal activities, and a new exotic on the reward pass. So that component I'm actually looking forward to, as well potentially as the return of Iron Banner, which is going to come back after Ashen Iron as well. So those are in addition to things like encounters from multiple dungeons being added to Pinnacle Ops, which is what DMG referenced a few weeks back. Bungie are now referring to this as dungeon lairs, which definitely has potential, especially if they actually put some dungeon rewards into them, instead of it just being more of the Pinnacle loot pool stuff. And beyond that, a bit further down the road, Bungie had also indicated, this was a year ago, so it could change, but they'd said 6-player activities for match-made or pre-made groups are planned in a new portal category called Flashpoint Ops, which we'll get later in the Year of Prophecy. So that's going to be offensives like Wellspring or any of the older 6-player seasonal activities by the sounds of it. So there are absolutely some things to be positive about moving forward. I think Bungie just seriously missed the mark with the TWID. And the problem is they've done it at the time where players are really exhausted and are looking for good changes, right? There's a lot of people kind of on the edge of, I don't think I want to play this anymore the way it is. And I think Bungie just lost a really big opportunity to make a bunch of good changes, player-friendly changes that are actually based on the enjoyment of players of the game as opposed to Bungie satisfying whatever kind of metrics they're trying to achieve in terms of player engagement. What's becoming obvious here is that when Bungie focus on that player engagement very hard, they become tunnel vision and they make decisions that are really not player friendly. And ultimately, that's hurting them. It's self-harm, essentially. And it is indefensible. Like I said, I'm tired of constantly saying critical things, but I just can't defend it. There's no way to defend it. And this is someone who actually enjoys Destiny. I'm actually a bit addicted to the grind as it stands right now. Call me a fool. Despite all of that, yeah, it's hard to get behind what Bungie are announcing in a lot of these changes because it just feels so disconnected from what the bulk of people actually want from the game. I do feel like Bungie can undo a lot of the negativity in that TWID though, if they announce some serious progression changes with regards to actual power climb, right? That's one thing they didn't specifically mention, so if they say we're speeding it up by double, for instance, I'm not saying that's what it needs to be, but I feel like that solves a lot of the problems that players are going to have. The reality is for Bungie though, especially with the changes they announced in the TWID, if those are not offset against a faster general progression climb, player numbers will just get worse following Ashen Iron. It will be another one of those situations where Bungie give a content drop, which should actually improve the situation, and we see players drop off. We saw actually that happen with the acts in the episodes last year. Players would kind of rally up before we get to an act with a bit of anticipation for something new to do, and then when they saw the contents of that drop, that sort of palpable disappointment would be the primary emotion, and then players would actually drop away immediately at the point in time where there should be more people coming into the game. And that will happen with Ashen Iron if there isn't a progression change to offset what they've announced in the TWID. So Bungie have got their work cut out for them. Let's see if they can acknowledge this stuff quick enough and actually make the right adjustments. And otherwise, in the meantime, before we get to that, if you're curious about things to do in Destiny soon, we are going to get Heavy Metal come back on the 2nd of September. This time, though, actually bring in some of the rewards which were originally made for Arms Week. So that'll be the sword called the Sinancia, I think, which is a solar waveframe sword. It can actually get Eager Edge, which some players will like, but there are a bunch of really nice rolls on it. There'll also be a new shotgun, which comes in a rapid fire slug archetype, which is going to be interesting. So those available, including at high tiers on the 2nd of September, which is a couple of weeks away from now. I'll leave you with a final thing here. Dr. Von Hay on Reddit shared, if you get something like a sublimation scout rifle with Adagio, then get your weapon stat to 200 for the damage increase. Just watch what this does in PvP. You make 1 kill to get Adagio procced. Then with the slowed rate of fire and increased damage, the scout rifle hits for 116 per shot, which is a 2-tap at incredibly long ranges. That is absolutely broken. Do with that information what you will. I guess that's one of the problems with having the weapon stat like that. Or maybe not, I don't know. Is 2-tapping with a scout rifle consistently an issue? Give me your thoughts down below. For today though guys, that's it. Give me your thoughts in the comment section and we'll keep you posted if and when Bungie follow up, hopefully soon, with more commentary on how they're going to be adjusting power climb and any things that they might even roll back from the TWID this week. I feel like most of it won't be that big of a deal if they actually increase the progression speed, which is the main complaint players have had, so maybe they just forgot to mention it. Let's stay positive. I'm gonna, because I've got no choice, because my mental health is suffering with this detritus. Right, if you've enjoyed the video, a rating really does help us out. If you're new around here and you want to be kept up to date, I will still be covering Destiny until the house burns down all the way. So get subscribed. Otherwise, cheers for watching, and I'll catch you guys very soon.